Industries, and I'll be your host for today. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to our webinar today, a joint webinar between ESME, LEAP, and the Migrant Workers Centre on Care for Migrant Workers C4M Insurance Scheme for migrant workers in the marine and offshore engineering sector. First up, we'll just run through some simple admin matters. We'll just get everyone to go ahead and scan the QR code as shown on the screen and click on the link that will be sent in the chat box shortly. Should you have any questions at any point of time during the webinar, please feel free to drop your questions in the Slido platform and we'll try to answer them during the Q&A session. A quick run through of today's program. First up, we have the opening speech by ESME, by our Executive Director, Mr. Wilson Ang. Moving on, we'll have the introduction session by LEAP. Next, a sharing session by the Migrant Workers Centre, followed by an introduction to the C4M coverage by NTUC Income. We will end up with a question and answer session with all our speakers ready to answer your questions. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Wilson Ang, the Executive Director of ESME. Wilson, please.
Right, thank you so much, Manda. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much again for making time down today. I think I just want to, as many of you know, a couple of weeks back, we had the opportunity to kick off or launch this initiative together with the partners. Maybe next slide, please. Right, so I just want to use it as an opportunity to say that we're very thankful to the partners, LEAP 201, Migrant Workers Centre, as well as NTUC Income, to make the Care for Migrant plan available for our marine offshore sector. I think this collaborative effort was something that was kicked off, I think, end of last year and officially started this year. So when we heard about this, we were very excited. I think over the past year, the marine sector and actually largely the construction, marine and process sector have been quite severely hit. I think not what many people don't realize is the marine sector, at least for the companies that I've been dealing with, the employers are one of the very active champion for our migrant workers. In fact, I'm focusing on our members. A lot of time in the conversation, even very much early on during the pandemic, we have our employer actually heavily championing, saying that our migrant workers' mental health is something that is a big issue that needs to be looked into. And also at the same time to make sure that how our migrant workers' livelihood could be maintained. So, but it becomes very challenging because of the financial situation. But thankfully, many of our companies, member companies especially, and those especially here, managed to pull through and continue to make sure that the livelihood and the lives of our workers are being taken care of. So when we first heard about this plan through LEAP 201, we were very excited. And also knowing that Migrant Workers Centre is an active champion for this, it kind of gives us a lot of confidence to come on board. So I guess that is the reason why ESME actually come on to actually work on this. And again, with the support of Migrant Worker as well as LEAP 201, there was also fund raised specifically to help co-fund this already very affordable plan to fund it further at about $3 per worker for at least the next 2 years. Basically, your minimum commitment is $6. So for today's purposes, I hope members who are here today could use this as an opportunity to find out more in terms of the details. Of course, the launch was 2 weeks ago. So today's session, the intent here is to really clarify some of the details. So with the clarification being made, members itself could also come on board. But at the same time, I just want to also share the next slide. So in fact, when this thing was being announced 2 weeks ago, we have many companies, even for me personally, we're getting text messages and email that are giving very positive response, saying that this initiative is great. So the introduction of such a term policy, in fact, one of our director for Parmarine actually helps to make a difference in migrant worker lives. Because again, the current policy, the WICA or whatever arrangements has limited scope. So I think moving forward, we do hope that when even after this plan concludes, the support for the 66%, we do hope that companies see the value in this plan and how it can benefit our migrant workers and will continue to fund or buy it for your migrant workers even after this so-called promotion period is over. So that's pretty much a short note that I hope to be able to just set the tone about why ESME is involved and how our employers, at least in the marine sector, are very much for this program and using it as an opportunity once again to thank LEAP 201, Migrant Workers Centre, as well as NTUC Income for this initiative. So thank you so much once again for partners and for participants. I hope you maximize today's session, and for anything you need to clarify, feel free to actually ask your questions in the Slido, the link provided by my colleagues. So that's pretty much it. Have a good session ahead.
Thank you, Wilson. Next up, we have Mr. Yip Hon Man, the Chief Operating Officer of LEAP 201, and Ms. Kim Yen Lin, the Project Lead of LEAP 201, giving us an overview about LEAP. Mr. Yip and Ms. Kim, you have the floor.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me and Kim here. I just like to show my appreciation to Esme, Wilson especially, who leads the team to make this happen. And I can never thank enough our partners, which is Migrants Worker Center, MWC, as well as Income. It would not have been possible for C4M if not for both that organization supporting us working together. So I just would like to give a quick introduction about LEAP 201. You probably have not heard of us. And then I let the remaining slides to be presented by Kim. So quickly, next slide, please. Thank you. So we come from Leap Philanthropy. Both Kim and myself are volunteers. If you have not heard of us, we're essentially a venture philanthropy organization. In other words, we are a charity organization, but we run it like almost a venture capital fund, working to empower low-income communities in Southeast Asia to leap above the poverty line of US $2 a day. That's where we get our name, Leap 201, just leap above $2, so it's 201. We do this by partnering local organizations, very similar like MWC, the Majority Trust, to catalyze innovative projects that enable small holders, farmers to work their way out of poverty. Next slide, please. We first started with Southeast Asia, except Singapore, years ago. That's how I got in as an inaugural fellow in the agriculture. We basically support the low-income households to improve their lives through sustainable means. In other words, we don't write them a check, but we teach them how to, instead of fishing for them, we teach them how to fish. That's what we're doing. And our vision is a Southeast Asia Asia, where every individual lives with dignities and freedom. Next slide, please. And there's a special funds set up during the COVID, 1st of May, 2019. And we went out in 5 days, Michael Lian and myself, we went out and we got donors to fund this project to help vulnerable groups in Singapore, in other words, the migrant workers, for about $1.95 million. And the donors come from UOB, come from the CG Group itself, from Seatown Holdings, which is part of Temasek, as well as Temasek, some of the individuals in Temasek Holdings itself. Our board of directors, if you see in the center, that's Michael Lian on the left side. There is Michael. You probably have heard of him. He has been serving the NUS Board of Trustees for more than a decade, as well as on the Temasek Holdings Board of Directors group for more than a decade as well. And we have Patrick Lee from Standard Charter, Till from the Bain Group, and a very prestigious list of board members that are helping us on their voluntary basis. On the LEAPS team itself, we run very, very thin. We have Nozumi, who is our ED. I myself is the COO, and a group of advisors and consultants helping us run the organization. Next slide, please. So just very quickly, during that 1 year of the LEAP 201, the Singapore group, we call it L4M, started. We have two major programs. One is a research program that we partner with the Majority Trust to understand and examine the living and employment conditions of low-wage migrant workers, and particularly in the construction sector. And that research paper has actually been issued, published, and as a result, TMT launched a fund based on the results to solve the problems that we have. The second program we have was we are very proud with, and I'm pretty sure MWC as well as Income are equally proud, is this Care for Migrant Workers. I'm going to save the detail for Kim and also Income and Bernard to talk a bit more about it. So our target is to launch more low-touch, high-impact programs for migrant workers in the coming years, as well as expanding this care for migrant workers to foreign domestic workers and proactively partner with government for advocacy. Okay, Kim, I'll hand the remaining slides to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Homan. Thank you. Yeah. Hi, morning, everyone. My name is Kim. As Homan briefly mentioned, I have more than 12 years experience in the insurance industry, so I will just share on the technicality or perhaps the program itself in greater details. So just about 2 weeks ago, we just celebrated our first anniversary on the 30th of September. And also at the same time, we launched this partnership together with ASME to provide migrant workers insurance, right, which is a group term life insurance plan. So according to the key market research, we also found out that most of the employers are actually very willing to pay more to boost the migrant workers' welfare. Hence, we find that this is very meaningful and it is very timely for us to actually launch this partnership together with ASME. Of course, the key person behind all these and drive all this is, of course, our chairman, Michael Lian, who is also featured on this news media at Zhao Bao in January 3rd, 2021 this year. Next slide, please. Right, just to actually touch on a little bit more in depth on the background. So the first 5 months, we actually launched C4M, Care for Migrant Workers Insurance Program. This is a group term life insurance program, very affordable, costing $9 per year per migrant workers with a payout of 10,000 sum assured. It covers 37 critical illness, personal disabilities, as well as personal accident. We actually partner with Migrant Workers Center, which is under NTUC. So we do not intend to fund the entire program. Pilot to show and to raise awareness of this insurance program. So far, we have did 40,000 migrant workers sign up, meaning to say that we sponsor a third Migrant Worker Center sponsor a third, and the remaining 1/3, we want the employers to have the skin of the game. So they would obviously pay another, the last remaining 1/3 of the premium. So during this period, instead of $9 per year from employers, employer will just need to pay $3 per year for 2 years program. So essentially, we do not want to fund the entire population of 550,000 migrant workers. We want to be the catalyst and to raise awareness. Ultimately, we want to collect sufficient data to showcase to MOM and to say that, hey, this is a very affordable and a doable scheme. Let's make this mandatory on top of WICA, Workmen Compensations Insurance. So because workmen compensations has a gap in this area, that's why we come in. So I would always like to quote very interesting quote from Homan. You know, I always remember, so $9 is like 75 cents a month. And this is even cheaper than a cup of kopi siu tai, you know, around the coffee shop around my place. So the insurer NTUC Income is actually very proud of this project. Having said that, we would appreciate when we would like to sign up another 60,000 migrant worker so that we can make it up to 100,000 migrant workers to have sufficient data points to actually present this to MOM. So just very quickly on the right side, this is actually a media release that of the launch date in September 2020, where we have Michael Lian, our chairman, we have Ng Chee Meng, we have Yeo Guat Guan, we have the CEO of NTUC Income, Andrew Yeo, and of course we have Homan behind the photo. We have 2 thumbs up. Yeah, and yeah, that's me. That's all for my sharing. Thank you.
Thank you both for the insightful sharing. Next up, actually, I would like to invite Mr. Bernard Menon, the Executive Director of the Migrant Workers Center. Mr. Menon, please.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me, Amanda?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay, great. I don't have any slides, so I apologize in advance. I'm basically here to basically give a view of the MWC's perspective in coming into this project with LEAP 201 and working on creating a product like C4M. So I think I'm just going to talk about the experience on the ground, which actually I think will mirror the experience of some employers. For starters, what do we have as existing protections for our migrant workers without C4M? So today what we have is the mandatory insurance regime for work permit holders. And essentially what that means is a combination of two different products. One, work injury compensation insurance, and number two, medical insurance. Work injury compensation insurance, whatever you get in compensation goes to the worker. And for medical insurance is essentially a tool created by MOM to help employers manage a contingency situation and costs arising from these situations. Essentially, for when a worker, for whatever reason, needs to be hospitalized, and of course, as a result, incurs certain costs. I think importantly, we've got to note that it is good that the government and the authorities have put this together to help employers, because essentially migrant workers, they are not entitled to same kind of subsidies and cover that our citizens get in our local hospitals. So tends the cost for medical treatment, medical stay, hospital stay tends to be a lot more. But having said that, what we do understand is that in most situations, even the medical insurance is not enough. I think the government's requirements is to cover up to 15,000 cover for medical bills. In most scenarios, I think there are certain exceptions to this where the coverage is higher, but in general, 15,000. And our experience on the ground is that in most instances, at least with serious injuries or illness, the 15,000 is not enough. Now, the position of the authorities is that this is just a tool to help employers manage the cost. And because they want to ensure that all employers take out this medical insurance, they have a purpose and objective of keeping the cost low, because you want everybody to comply. So what is it from the experience of the employers, the perspective of the employers? In our experience, in most instances, what we see is that, especially in the incidents of non-work related, where there is no WICA cover, non-work related accidents and illnesses, I think by and large, most Singaporean employers want to do something for their worker, even though they don't have WICA to help them. They have medical insurance, but aside from the 15,000 cover of medical insurance, the law actually states that whatever medical treatment and stay your worker has to get from a hospital in Singapore, for whatever reason, whether work or non-work related, the employer is liable to cover the cost. So in many instances, this puts employers in quite a tough position. You in your heart, you want to do something for your worker who has maybe passed away or is permanently disabled or even suffers a chronic illness. You want to do something for your workers, but then you have to tend with rising hospital bills. You have to tend with, in some certain instances, where there is a WICA. Even though there is WICA, you can resort to WICA, but if it's a worksite accident, the government might come in, might conduct an investigation, and at the end of the day, the company might be penalized even further. So this puts employers in quite a difficult position. We understand that most employers want to do right by their workers, but unfortunately, everything amounts to money. So what is the perspective of the MWC? Now, prior to COVID-19, in most cases of industrial accidents, and in many cases of non-work related accidents, what the MWC does as a migrant rights and protection group is we try to get to the scene of the accident, to the hospital, and things like that. And the objective of this is to basically try and coincide with the employer, and so that we can help the employer along. First of all, we can brief the employer on what their statutory responsibilities are, so that they don't shirk these and don't open themselves to any kind of inquiry or prosecution or anything like that. Then on top of that, for most employers, like I said, who really have this desire to do right for their workers, the MWC typically comes in and tries to help them along the way. Now, help can mean to try and find a way to talk to the hospital authorities, MOM, MOH about the medical costs, but as well as to help the employer do something for the worker, or if he's unfortunately passed away, something for his family. This is how we typically operate, and to help us, the MWC actually has a charity of its own. Interestingly, the chairman of the board of trustees of my charity actually comes from the marine sector. I won't say his name. I think it's probably quite well publicized online. But anyway, we use this charity to try and help make token payments to workers to supplement what the employer can do in most instances. Then comes COVID-19. Well, during COVID-19, what I can tell you is that our charity alone paid out, there were in total, in 2020, there were 14 migrant worker deaths that upon post-mortem was connected. The link was drawn back to COVID-19. Now, COVID-19 is not covered by WICA. So essentially, there was no compensation to the next of kin. You can imagine what a tough position this lands the family in, because, you know, your sole breadwinner has come to Singapore to try and earn money to sustain the family. He's contracted COVID-19. It's a global pandemic. Nobody can control this. The employer wants to do something for his worker, but, you know, during COVID-19, economic times are tough. Everybody is reeling. Everybody is suffering. There's a limit to what I can do. And so, of course, in partnership with MOM and the government authorities, for each of the 14 COVID-19 related deaths, the Migrant Worker Center from our charity paid out about $12,000 to the family. Okay, so this is what we typically do. This then begs the question, right? I mean, these non-work related deaths, accidents, illnesses have occurred even before COVID-19, and then maybe more pronounced during COVID-19. But is it sustainable to deal with this situation and carry on this way? Because to rely on charity is not as sustainable and reliable as having in place a tool or a lever by which employers, workers, dormitory operators, anybody who wants to purchase this for the worker, or for that matter, the worker for himself, can help to manage the cost on their own. And so we've always wanted to work on some kind of an insurance program to cover that gap, especially that non-work related gap, that what we see today in the compulsory insurance regime for our work permit system, we think is lacking. And how we've done it as a protection and advocacy organization, we've tended to, you know, say publicly, make pronouncements publicly, work with MOM and things like that. And the trigger to actually doing something in 2020 was when LEAP 201 approached us. Essentially, we now had an organization very like-minded with us, willing to come and work with us on solutioning. And then not only that, willing to come in and put some money where their mouths were. From the perspective of the MWC and NTUC, which operates the Migrant Worker Center, we thought this was now the opportunity that we've been waiting for. We never had a problem of fundraising and putting in our fair share of resources to try and come up with a program that could be made widely available to everybody. But now we had somebody that was willing to come in and double up on the game. And so we worked together and we came up with this. One of the biggest challenges we had was how to make this product affordable for everybody. And having spoken to our brothers and sisters at NTUC Income, we then decided that the way forward was to go via a group term life total permanent disability insurance product with a critical illness rider. So essentially, I don't want to go into the technicalities. I know my colleague from Income will go through later. But essentially, our main objective was to make this affordable for everybody. I would have you know that actually, even today, any employer, any worker can take up a term life total permanent disability insurance product. In fact, most of us here have some kind of insurance product similar to that already. The problem is when you do it personally and on an individual level, the costs are quite large. And so what we wanted to do was make this, base this on a group insurance scheme, and thereby being able to reduce the cost to what it is today. So essentially $9. In order to do that, obviously there were some hurdles we needed to cross, but thankfully, with the partnership of Lead 201, NTUC Income, and also the MWC, we were able to overcome many of these obstacles. And last year, we made the product available to the public. The take-up has been actually very, very encouraging. But essentially how a group insurance product operates is that you spread the risk among a large pool of beneficiaries. And therefore, each one pays a smaller share for the protection of the group. It's actually no different from trade union representation. It's no different from any associations that you all as professionals are part of. Essentially, it is trying to aggregate the voices and interests of a large group so that on the cost level, each individual pays slightly lesser. So I'm grateful that we were able to do this. And upon having done it, and of course, employers from all sectors coming in to show interest and obviously wanting to leverage on the subsidies that together with already the quite low cost, in order to make it a really convincing proposition to employers, the MWC and Lead 201 each decided to fund 1/3 of the cost for the first 2 years. And I think that has generated a lot of interest, a lot of people coming in to show interest. And that takes us to where ASMI then came on board. And actually, to be fair, there is not very many kinds of inroads that you can make to really drive home the argument to employers beyond having the participation of a key a trade association on your side. And ASMI's participation is especially significant because C4M was designed for migrant workers, mostly from South Asia and, of course, North Asia, that are from the construction, marine, and process sectors. This term CMP has been thrown around quite a bit of late, but essentially ASMI's participation not only is encouraging to us because it is the marine sector, a key employer for the workers that we want to help with this product, but also I think ASMI's warmness in seeking us out and offering themselves as an aggregator, I think also shows ASMI's knowledge and understanding of the challenges employers face on the ground, especially in this period where I think none of you will argue with me that there is an acute shortage of manpower. I think especially employers that have all along, and they would represent the majority in my experience, who have all along tried everything within their means to protect their workers, improve their condition, and try and thereby build loyalty, to workers, to the company, and to the firm. I think ASMI is a leader, and I think in partnering with Lead 201 and the MWC and Income, ASMI shows that they understand what the needs of their members are and are willing to take a leadership role in aggregating this product and manage it centrally for ASMI members in the marine and the marine sector. So I think with that, I hope I've given a little bit of a background as to, why C4M will benefit most employers. But I think what I cannot understate is my gratitude to all the partners involved in this, to Lead 2001 and to our brothers and sisters at Income. But I think more importantly, especially for this event, for the Marine Sector Association, for taking the lead in being the first CMP trade association to come and partner with us to promote C4M to the workers the migrant workers in Singapore. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Menon, for the insightful sharing. So the last speaker that we have for today is Ms. Linda Lai, the manager of the group business under NTUC Income. Ms. Lai, please.
Hi, morning, everyone. Just give me a minute.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, everybody can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks, Esme, for having us to share in this morning sessions. So I'm Linda from NTUC Income, who is the insurance provider for this C4M insurance product. Okay, so let's go into details. So basically, what is C4M? It's actually a group term life insurance that covers and insured migrant workers against death due to all causes, non-work related accidents that result in death or total permanent disability, as well as the 37 critical illness, as what I think the previous speaker has shared earlier as well. Okay, so who is eligible for this C4M? Is a migrant worker who is holding a valid work permit for foreign worker or S-Pass issued by MOM and age 60 years old and below. Okay, and the geographical cover for C4M, it only covers events that occur in Singapore only. Okay, so this below the table here shows you the benefits for C4M. So as earlier we shared, it covers 37 critical illness. This 37 critical illness is has already been defined under the Life Insurance Association of Singapore, and it's actually the standard across all insurance company, all life insurance company in Singapore. Okay, it covers up to 10,000. It pays also for death due to all causes, up to 10,000, and death due to an accident after working hours. Okay, as what we mentioned earlier, this whole C4M is actually meant to take care of the migrant workers outside of your working hours. Okay, so it covers total and permanent disability due to an accident after working hours of 10,000 as well. So premium per worker per year, this is $9, which is before the subsidies. Okay. Okay, so this is basically the schedule of what C4M is about. Next, I will go into some of the commonly asked questions by some of the companies for this product. So for all product, there will be have some exclusions. So these are some of the common important exclusions under C4M. Okay, so for self-inflicted injury, any attempt of threat, whether it's sane or insane, is not covered. The influence or misuse of drugs or alcohol that leads to death or total permanent disability is also not covered. And for critical illness, right, any pre-existing condition that it lead to the critical illness before these migrant workers are covered are also not covered. Okay, so here the table here shows the different scenario. Sorry. Okay. Okay, so the table here shows you the different scenario of the events if what will be the payout if the migrant worker encounter such events. Okay, first, if let's say a death due to an accident during working hours, right? We will pay you the 10,000 due to all causes. Okay, if another event is if it's a death due to an accident after working hours. Okay, we will pay you a 10,000 because it's death due to all causes and a death due to an accident after working hours. So the total payout is actually 20,000. Okay, if it's a death due to an illness, not an accident, the keyword here is illness, we will pay you a 10,000. Okay, so another scenario, if it's made with an accident and it's and leads to a total and permanent disability of the migrant workers, right? We will pay you a 10,000. Okay, so what happens if the migrant worker diagnosed with and meet the definition of any of the 37 critical illness, we will pay you 10,000. So once this 10,000 of critical illness is paid out, right, this critical illness benefit will cease. Okay. So next, is there any minimum headcount required to start this policy? Yes, a minimum headcount of 12 employees or a minimum premium of 108 per policy per year is required. Okay, so what happens if the workers no longer employed by the employer? Okay, the cover for this migrant worker will cease, but there will be no premium refund for the unutilized period. And most of the time, some companies will actually ask whether they can replace the terminated employees with the new employee, with another new employee during the period of insurance. So the answer is no. Replacement of terminated employees is not allowed. So if you have a new employees that joins you, right, you have to declare to us and buy a new policy for this cover for this new employee. But of course, because there is a minimum premium required, you can actually accumulate to meet the minimum required and inform us. Okay. So can employer buy higher coverage? Because some companies may think that 10,000 is not sufficient. They want to provide more cover for their migrant workers, right? So company can actually approach us directly for a customized quote, because this is a special scheme that is special plan that we actually work with LEAP and MWC for this special scheme only. Okay, so the whole policy is administered on a headcount basis, but employer has to provide names of all the covered employees before the issuance of the policy or any of the endorsement for new employees to join the cover. Okay. So how to submit a claim? So for any claim submission, right, companies can actually complete the claim form and email it to groupclaim@income.com.sg. Then what are the documents required to apply for this cover? Companies can actually complete this group application form, provide us with a copy of the ACRA with at least 6 months validity period, the customer due diligence form, and the name listing. In the application form, all these forms will be listed there. So all the instructions will be there as well. So company will just be, after completing the forms, right, they can actually submit it to groupbiz@income.com.sg. Okay, so these are some of the email addresses for inquiries for this product. Anything you want to find out more after these sessions, right? You can also write in to us at groupbiz@income.com.sg. For claims related matters, you can write in to groupclaim@income.com.sg. Okay, so basically that's all for the products. Yeah, we can continue with any Q&A.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lai, for the in-depth sharing. So next up, we'll move into the Q&A session. So let me just see. Actually, do see some questions in the Q&A session. So I would like to open up this question to all the speakers also. So we actually have somebody who asked, are the policies covered for COVID-related issues?
Hi, morning everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Rachel.
Okay, I'm Rachel from Income. So regarding the COVID cover, right? So like what Linda has presented, this is actually a term life policy. So in the event if the worker had COVID and then passed away, yes, the policy will kick in. But if you are talking about medical expenses, then no, this term life policy will not cover any medical expenses. That will fall back under the group H&S policy that the employer may have for the workers.
Understand. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so there's a question on, do you term all work permit staff as migrant workers? So I think there's another question related to this, like how do you define migrant worker list? Like what are the ones that are covered under that?
Okay, so migrant worker is actually defined as foreign workers holding the S pass or a work permit. Okay, so employment pass, all this usually will fall under the normal employees benefits that is provided by the company. So I think that the gap here is actually the migrant worker that we are taking care of. Yeah, so S pass and work permit holder.
Yeah, Amanda, maybe I can add on to that.
Yep, sure.
This term migrant worker is a collective term that means different things to different people. I think for the MWC, typically when we talk about migrant workers, what we are referring to is work permit holders. But for the purposes of this partnership and this insurance product, I think we saw a need especially because for S-Pass holders, they tend to span a spectrum in terms of skills and salary. And the lowest rungs of S-Pass actually, for all intents and purposes, look very similar to migrant workers. And so in coming up with this product, we didn't want to marginalize the S-Pass group. What we are confident is that as far as working professionals are concerned, meaning employment passes, yeah, they would not be part of the group that we are talking about when we talk about this group term life insurance product. So yeah, to answer your question, I understand it's actually a very good question. I understand why there can be sometimes some confusion. Just to explain, the group that typically the Migrant Workers Center and NTUC, in fact, go out of our way to help protect and advocate for, tends to be the group that what's the word to use? Very rarely has a voice of their own, and therefore they need our extra help, right? And we've included for specifically for this product S-Pass holders also, because we foresee that some employers will want to include S-Pass holders who are also workers on the ground in their workforce into the protection. Yeah.
Understand. Great. Okay, so there's another one question that says, can we add on rider plans if we want to top up for COVID-related coverage?
Okay, so for this, right, as I think Linda has also presented earlier, as this is a package product that we have actually worked with LEAP 21 and MWC to come out with, right? So it's actually a package plan, no customization. But I mean, if the company is looking at more variety or more top up or more coverage that they think that it's suitable for their employee, just feel free to write into us and we can provide a customized quote.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long would the application process take to sign up actually for the policy take?
Okay, the application after the complete information is submitted to us, usually the processing time is maybe about two weeks.
2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a question on what if the staff leaves before the 2 years mark?
Okay, the premium is actually a flat rate of $9 per employee. So if in the event if the employees left the employment, then there will be no cover for them lah. But there will also not be any refund for the premium being paid.
Understand.
Yeah.
One question is, will the policy name the workers or the company and its staff?
Okay, as this is a group policy, the policyholder will be the company. Policy-wise, when we first issue the policy, we will state the number of employees. But under the application, when you are submitting the application form to us, we do require the list of employees so that we are aware who is actually the insured employees. Yeah.
Okay, I think there's one question that requires a little more clarification. So is this a 2-year program or do we have to actually renew annually?
Okay, so under the subsidies portion, right? Because LEAD and MWC is actually covering six in total, $6 per year. So for those that are under the subsidized rate, we will be issuing a 2 years policies.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a question in the chat box. So Sam, how do we sign up to buy this insurance? Okay, so that's a very good question. Next up, we actually have a slide later where we have a QR code where you can actually state your interest in the form itself, and actually we will come and contact you after this webinar. So
Amanda, can I add a clarification
Yep,
also
sure,
to the last question? I think we've got to, okay, so LEAD 201 and MWC have come into this on 2 levels. One, create the product together with Income. So we've created the product as a group insurance scheme, right? And we've tried our hardest to keep the costs as low and as manageable as possible, so employers can take their own personal responsibility to do this added protection for their workers. On top of that, Leap 201 and MWC have come into partner to raise funds to sponsor the initial take-up of this group. And how we've done it is, of course, neither of the organizations are very, very rich. So we had to do quite considerable fundraising and things like that. And we had to put a little bit of a cap on the thing. So essentially what you have is already a very affordable product. But the two partners have come together to say, despite the fact, notwithstanding the fact that it's affordable, we are going to sponsor 1/3 each, right? Up to a period of 2 years for the first people that sign on, right? And I think Income can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's for a period of 2 years or up to the first 50,000 workers that are covered, whichever comes first. So this is the part where we mentioned 2 years, right? And then obviously, if you're not one of the early birds and all that, I don't think employers really have to fear. It's still very affordable, if you ask me, $9. And I think employers have to really ask themselves, as they do with all other business concerns, is this worth my money doing something like this for my workers? Ultimately, I think in order to try and execute this subsidized part for the early birds, I think Income has decided to keep that for that group who are purchasing on subsidy to 2 years because of our initial offer to sponsor for 2 years. And Linda and Rachel can correct me if I'm wrong, for those that are not part of the early bird, for whatever reason, and they still purchase it, maybe after 2 years, 3 years time, someone purchases this insurance, then I think it's renewable on a year-to-year basis. Rachel and Linda, please correct me if I'm wrong.
So this product will only be available when we are running the program. So it really depends on, up to when, if the ministry decided to come out with something else, then this program may stop. Yeah. So I think Bernard correctly pointed out that those without subsidy, then the policy will be issued on a yearly basis. But those on a subsidies basis, on a subsidized rate basis, then a 2-year program will be issued. Yep.
Understand. Okay, I have a question from ICF, Joshua. So actually he has some clarification also. What do you define as late stage in critical illness? That is being covered under the...
Okay, actually, for the critical illness, there's a definition that is standardized across all industries. So you actually have to look at the kind of, the definition. It's not like everything is late stage. It really depends on whether they fulfill the definition in order to claim for the insurance.
Okay. So he also has another question. The migrant worker may request to return to their home country to be with family when a critical illness happens, and during this time their work permit might expire. Will they still be qualified for the claim itself?
So I think when they are in Singapore, it depends on, whether the claim is submitted and whether we have the required medical report. It really depends on the circumstances, because in order for the payout to, for us to pay out the claims, right, we need to fulfill the definition. Yeah, but definitely the death, accident or etc. It has to happen in Singapore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Harman, do you want to add on to anything?
Yeah, sorry, I was
problem.
muted. I just wanted, it might have been mentioned by our partners, Income and MWC as well as us, but I'd just like to let everybody know that MWC and us raise a fund to subsidize this if you sign up for 2 years, but this is on a first come first serve basis. Right now we're looking at probably around 10,000 plus minus so far. So the fact is that, like Bernard has said, by itself without subsidy, $9 a year, less than a cup of a kopi or siutai is still very affordable. But if you already made up your mind, you want to do something, I would really encourage you to sign up quickly. But just want to emphasize that it's a first come first serve basis. We got about 10,000, subsidy quota left. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. So we actually, I see someone that raised their hand. Nyanjulo, maybe you want, let me unmute you and you can actually ask your question. Great, you are unmuted. You can actually go ahead and ask the question. Hi, Julo, can you hear us? Okay, maybe we can. Okay, maybe we can give him a few minutes later. We can get back to him. So we have another question from Evelyn. They actually have an existing PA policy. So should there be a claim, are we allowed to make two claims, i.e. both AIA or NTUC?
Okay, if I mean, only medical expenses you can't make a double claim. So usually for lump sum payments such as a critical illness, PA or death, then yes, you can claim from all the insurance that you have for your employees.
Understand.
Yeah.
Okay. Give me a second. Okay, so we have just one last question. The shipyard's work permit sponsorship is yearly. How can the foreign worker be covered for 2 years if his work pass is only valid for 1 year?
Maybe I answered this. I think in a situation like that, like I said just now, typically this policy was designed as a year-to-year policy, so that's quite consistent with your prior approvals and your 1 year work permit and things like that, right? And I think when we say 2 years, it's only as far as the subsidy is concerned. So I think employers really have to ask themselves. I mean, whether or not you want to come into the product for which worker, whether it's a 2 year, 1 year, whether you want to come in quickly and obtain the subsidy, and how that would then help defray some of your costs along the way and things like that. To be fair, when we devise this product, we devise this product for all non-traditional source workers. And I also mentioned just now, I think as a direction, when we built it to protect work permit holders. What we did not do is we started to consider the different employment systems and arrangements in the different CMP sectors. So what we needed to do was create a product that would be applicable across all the sectors, including manufacturing, services, and things like that, for all employers that want to do this. So I think it's not a question of how you expect the product to cover you for 2 years when the work permit is only 1 year. By all means, if it makes more sense to the company, go for the 1 year arrangement, right? But of course, if the company thinks I have a large workforce of people on 2 year work permit, to me, it makes a lot of sense to go and, basically share the cost with two other organizations, to protect my workers. Then I would advise, like what Hong Man has said, come in quickly, because even for the sponsored group, the subsidized group of 50,000, we are already very close to 40K. So yeah, and it's while stocks last,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
So Wilson, I just want to add in a bit. Thank you so much. You're right. Exactly what stock
Well,
loss.
stop less.
So I think as it is like what was presented earlier by Boom Bernard as well as Manhon and teams, that I think if let's say you want to go with 1 year, actually $9 per year is also really very affordable. So it is something to consider. But like what I mentioned earlier, just amalgamate or get others to come on board to support together. I think that would definitely help. So again, just want to quickly also weigh in for those members who are keen to sign up, just scan the QR code, right? And I also noticed Evelyn raised her hand. She wanted to say something. Maybe just can let Evelyn have the floor as well.
Yep, I think Judo also he's actually here right now.
Okay. Then you
Yeah.
can just ask and say,
Hi, can you hear us?
Yanju?
Yes, Amanda, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
I am so sorry. I was hunting for the unmute button just now.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Okay, basically, I have two questions. One is, at this currently we are talking about a 2 year plan. May I know what is the plan for this particular insurance program, after the 2 years? Because now we tend to be a little bit more focused on the COVID part. And my second question is, will the premium be affected by the claims ratio? Because if we are continually running this program, what insurers usually do is they will review the premiums based on the claims ratio over time. Yeah, that's all for my questions.
Okay. Okay. So for the claims experience part, right? This is actually on a portfolio basis. So we are actually looking at C4M as one whole rather than individual policies. Yeah. So for now, I think that the plan is really just for 2 years because I think Bernard has also mentioned earlier, it really depends on after 2 years, then what the ministry is actually looking at and whether there are any changes required. Yeah. So for now, the plan is actually for 2 years, and then we'll review again after the 2 years, how the program go.
Maybe I can also add, sorry, I feel like feel like adding a word into every single question. I apologize for taking up everybody's time. One of the reasons why the MWC wanted to do this, and actually we convinced LEAP of the value of this, is because if the take-up was good and all employers saw this as valuable, despite the fact that the government has not made it compulsory, then we would have that what we need in terms of ammunition to advocate to the government to say, look, 75% of employers have taken this up based on their own personal responsibility to protect their workers, right? Then we can advocate to the ministry to maybe try and maybe not make it compulsory for everybody, but to incorporate aspects of a group term life insurance policy into the mandatory insurance regime for work permit holders and maybe even S passes. So part of what I won't deny, part of what we do is basically piloting this to see how it takes off. And if there is value in this, to then advocate to the government to say, look, the employers agree, right? So let us put this, some aspect of it into our mandatory insurance regime. When that, if and when that happens, right, you can be sure that other insurance companies will then also come up with their similar C4M products, right? And what we are trying to do is to try and demonstrate to the government that there are some things that you don't really have to make employers do, because there are some things that, as a result of own personal responsibility and the desire to do something for their own workers, you just make a product available and people will come. And so far, the results we have garnered since we launched this product actually demonstrate this. There's a whole host of very, very good employers that, especially in the COVID-19 period, have seen and realized the importance of doing something like this for their workers. And they've taken it up. What we have done is maybe just to create the product and then encourage a little bit with a bit of subsidy, right? But I would be very, very interested to see what the take-up continues to be like after the subsidies close. And I think on whether or not this continues, obviously there are many factors to consider. If the government takes it and runs with it after 2 years, right, then the answer to the question would be, it would still be available. But then in that situation, you'll probably be able to get it from Manulife, AIA, all that. Okay, what Income is doing now is because, obviously, as a member of the NTUC family, Income is probably one of those that's run very differently. NTUC Income is a social enterprise. It has, besides business goals, it has social welfare, social outcomes to fulfill. And when we first engaged Income, maybe I can let everybody know, we engaged them on a level that you now need to come in and help us do national service, right? So that is part of Income's objectives as a result of this. To be very fair, for most insurance firms, whether or not they carry on a product will be a factor of how much money they make, how much risk they expose themselves to, and things like that. So Income will obviously do such reviews after the 2 years. And we really can't say now. The product could continue at a different cost. The product could continue because the government has made it mandatory and everybody, all the insurance firms are now creating similar products. But to be very fair, it's very difficult to answer this question how it is. What we do know for sure is that after 2 years, the government doesn't take it up, nobody else is taking it up, We will try everything, and I'm saying the Migrant Worker Center and NTUC, in our power to convince NTUC Income to keep this running.
Great, thank you so much. So I think we'll just take one last question from Evelyn. Maybe Evelyn, I will let you unmute right now and you can go ahead and ask your question. Hi Evelyn, can you hear us? Just a second, yeah. Okay, maybe she's actually not here right now. So maybe any other questions, we can actually get all participants to send in your questions at admin@sme.com, and we'll actually get back to you as soon as possible. So we actually have come to the end of our webinar, and we hope you enjoyed it as much as we did and learned a lot more about this insurance scheme. Before you go, just wanted to let everyone know to go ahead and scan the QR code, which leads you to a form to state your interest for this scheme. So we hope that you now have a better understanding of this, and should you have any questions, like I said, you can email us at admin@asmi.com and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. So thank you so much, and we hope to see everyone physically real soon, and stay safe and have a great week ahead. Goodbye, everyone.